Sigrid Undset, born on the 20th of May 1882, died on the 10th of June 1949, was a Norwegian-Danish novelist who was awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1928. Undset was born in Kalundborg, Denmark, but her family moved to Norway when she was 2 years old. In 1924, she converted to Catholicism. She fled Norway for the United States in 1940 because of her opposition to Nazi Germany and the German invasion and occupation of Norway, but returned after World War II ended in 1945. Her best-known work is Kristin Lavransdatter, a trilogy about life in Norway in the Middle Ages, portrayed through the experiences of a woman from birth until death. Its 3 volumes were published between 1920 and 1922. While employed at office work, Undset wrote and studied. She was 16 years old when she made her first attempt at writing a novel set in the Nordic Middle Ages. The manuscript, a historical novel set in medieval Denmark, was ready by the time she was 22. It was turned down by the publishing house. Nonetheless, 2 years later, she completed another manuscript, much less voluminous than the first at only 80 pages. She had put aside the Middle Ages and had instead produced a realistic description of a woman with a middle-class background in contemporary Christiania. This book was also refused by the publishers at first, but it was subsequently accepted. The title was Fru Marta Uli, and the opening sentence, the words of the book's main character, scandalized readers: "I have been unfaithful to my husband." Thus, at the age of 25, Undset made her literary debut with a short realistic novel on adultery, set against a contemporary background. It created a stir, and she found herself ranked as a promising young author in Norway. During the years up to 1919, Undset published a number of novels set in contemporary Christiania. Her contemporary novels of the period 1907 to 1918 are about the city and its inhabitants. They are stories of working people, of trivial family destinies, of the relationship between parents and children. Her main subjects are women and their love. Or, as she herself put it, in her typically curt and ironic manner, the immoral kind of love. This realistic period culminated in the novels Jenny, 1911, and Våren, Spring, 1914. The first is about a woman painter who, as a result of romantic crises, believes that she is wasting her life, and, in the end, commits suicide. The other tells of a woman who succeeds in saving both herself and her love from a serious matrimonial crisis, finally creating a secure family. These books placed Undset apart from the incipient women's emancipation movement in Europe. Undset's books sold well from the start, and, after the publication of her third book, she left her office job and prepared to live on her income as a writer. Having been granted a writer's scholarship, she set out on a lengthy journey in Europe. After short stops in Denmark and Germany, she continued to Italy, arriving in Rome in December 1909, where she remained for 9 months. Undset's parents had had a close relationship with Rome, and, during her stay there, she followed in their footsteps. The encounter with Southern Europe meant a great deal to her. She made friends within the circle of Scandinavian artists and writers in Rome. After 1929, she completed a series of novels set in contemporary Oslo, with a strong Catholic element. She selected her themes from the small Catholic community in Norway. But here also, the main theme is love. She also published a number of weighty historical works which put the history of Norway into a sober perspective. In addition, she translated several Icelandic sagas into modern Norwegian and published a number of literary essays, mainly on English literature, of which a long essay on the Bronte sisters, and one on D.H. Lawrence, are especially worth mentioning. In 1934, she published 11 Years Old, an autobiographical work. With a minimum of camouflage, it tells the story of her own childhood in Christiania, of her home, rich in intellectual values and love, and of her sick father. At the end of the 1930s, she commenced work on a new historical novel set in 18th century Scandinavia. Only the first volume, Madame Dorothea, was published, in 1939. The Second World War broke out that same year and proceeded to break her, both as a writer and as a woman. She never completed her new novel. When Joseph Stalin's invasion of Finland touched off the Winter War, Undset supported the Finnish war effort by donating her Nobel Prize on January 25, 1940. When Germany invaded Norway in April 1940, Undset was forced to flee. She had strongly criticized Hitler since the early 1930s, and, from an early date, her books were banned in Nazi Germany. She had no wish to become a target of the Gestapo and fled to neutral Sweden. Her eldest son, Second Lieutenant Anders Svarstad of the Norwegian Army, was killed in action at the age of 27, on April 27, 1940, in an engagement with German troops at Segalstad Bridge in Gosdal. Undset's sick daughter had died shortly before the outbreak of the war. Biblioteket was requisitioned by the Wehrmacht, and used as officers' quarters throughout the occupation of Norway. In 1940, Undset and her younger son left neutral Sweden for the United States. There, she untiringly pleaded her occupied country's cause and that of Europe's Jews in writings, speeches and interviews. She lived in Brooklyn Heights, New York. She was active in Street Ansgar's Scandinavian Catholic League and wrote several articles for its bulletin. She also traveled to Florida, where she became close friends with novelist Marjorie Kinnan Rawlings. Following the German execution of the Danish Lutheran pastor Kojmunk on January 4, 1944, the Danish resistance newspaper De Frie Danske printed condemning articles from influential Scandinavians, including Undset. Undset returned to Norway after the liberation in 1945. She lived another 4 years but never published another word. Undset died at 67 in Lillehammer, Norway, where she had lived from 1919 through 1940. She was buried in the village of Mesnali, 15 kilometers east of Lillehammer, where also her daughter and the son who died in battle are remembered. The grave is recognizable by 3 black crosses. Honors? Undset won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1928, for which she was nominated by Helga Eng, member of the Norwegian Academy of Science and Letters. A mountain on the Moon, east of crater Lambert at Mare Imbrium, was called Mons Undset. However, it was erroneously mentioned as Mons Undest on Lunar Topographic Orthophoto Map 40b4. The International Astronomical Union, IAU, refused to include Mons Undset in the alphabetic gazetteer of officially named lunar formations. This mountain is nowadays known as Lambert Gamma. A crater on the planet Venus was named after Undset. Undset was depicted on a Norwegian 500 kroner note and a 2 kroner postage stamp from 1982. Neighboring Sweden put her on a stamp in 1998. Bjørgebekk, Undset's home in Lillehammer, is now part of the Mayhaugen Museum. The farmhouse was listed clarification needed, in 1983. Efforts to restore and furnish the houses as they were during the time of her occupancy were begun in 1997. New public buildings clarification needed, were opened in May 2007. Undset is depicted on the tail fin of a Norwegian air shuttle Boeing 737-800, with the registration LN-NGY. Thanks for watching HerStory channel. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe our channel.